Welcome to our December gathering, Christmas time. As you can see, we've got the QR code in the right-hand corner. Don't forget to scan it, get your mark points. The guys who have been involved with helping are scoring those points quickly, but everyone at the end of the day will be in line for the draw. So welcome. Any new members here? Any new members? Hands up. No new members? Okay, our special guest. Andrew Lester, yeah, welcome. Stand up, Andrew. So good to see you. Yeah, give us a call. Yeah, great. Good stuff. Well done. Okay, special guest. We've got Chris, all the way from Springfield in Tennessee. I'm not too sure if Craig has joined us, or Gary from Florida, but welcome and thank you guys for joining us. Also, Wayne Van Rooyen as well is back in the aviation fold, and we welcome him back. He just had a chat with Mari, and it was that he's back in there's Mari up there, yeah. And then, of course, welcome all the current members. Thank you for. You missed the aeroplane.
That's exactly what I doing.
Oh, did you? That pools never differ. Okay, so there's our birthdays. We've got quite a bunch of them this month. Happy birthday to all those guys. If you're here, you know where the bar is and buy all of you. Billy, it's your birthday, yeah. Okay. Billy's buying the beers tonight, guys. Thank you, Billy. Previous minutes, can I just have a quick, they were emailed out. Someone can approve them, and the seconder. Thanks, Cole, proposer, and Jeremy, seconder. Okay. Future events. Okay, so 5th of December, we've got the Steady Climb Initiative at Rhino Park. 16th of December, there's a fun rally at Witbank, Emalasheni. 13th of January is going to be our next meeting. Remember, we don't have it in the first week. We just go still away on holiday, so second week of January. And 13th of January, we're going to have something new. We're going to have a combined chapter gathering. With, 13th of Feb, yeah, sorry. Combined chapter meeting with 322 and chapter 932 in Gulf, Illinois, the Onyx chapter. And we're going to do a little presentation on what our chapter is about, our history, what we fly, what we're building. They're going to do the same. So any input from anyone, any of the members, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you're building an interesting plane, we need to know about it. Flying an interesting plane. And that's going to be a lot of fun. It's the first time it's going to be done. 2 chapters getting together, especially internationally. And I think EAA in the USA are quite excited. Okay, so. Oh, yes, yeah, I've got it there. Stansfield annual breakfast fly in 1502. Okay, cool. And then, just to go through that. So this is Rhino Park on Saturday. It's for a good cause. Hopefully the weather's going to hold out. If it's not good, don't take chances. We're encouraging everyone to dress up for the rally. So in flying gear, it can be serious, it can be crazy, it can be wacky, whatever we want. So please, if everyone can join in the spirit of it, we're going to have a good spirit award, and we'll be looking out for the best or worst pilots. It's got to be a pilot here. And then so now, the 27th of Feb, we're going to have a drive-in movie night at Cricket Walk. Not only driving, the guys can also bring their planes, and park their planes on the grass, it'll be on the grass runway. Against one of the hangars, we'll have a giant inflatable screen. We're planning to show the movie on Bob Hoover, Flying the Feathered Edge. And those who want to fly in can camp on the airfield. The showers and toilets and everything will be available. They've got that beautiful grass patch that they've made in front of the office, and they welcome anyone who wants to stay over. So if you want to fly in and sit and watch a movie, a drive-in movie from the aeroplane, becoming different, mark that down for 27th of Feb. Weather day for that is going to be the next weekend, the first weekend in March, if we do have a weather issue. And then the EAA convention and fly-in, we're combining that with Aero Club Air Week. Middleburg Airfield, Saturday 24, you can come on the Friday if you want. Tuesday 27th of April, and the Monday is a holiday. Rob is going to put the rallies, I think, on the Monday there. So you, Rob, are you there?
Yeah, so we've chosen a week before the end of the month, where the holiday is on a Tuesday. So the idea is to have a week or a weekend on a Saturday, Tuesday, Tuesday. The convention can then also be for that entire weekend. And we will have the speed rally, which we had this year planned for the Friday, or rather Thursday, Friday, because the holiday was on Friday. We're now moving that to the Monday, Tuesday. So the Tuesday is the race, and on the Monday it's the test flight. But for the rest of the weekend, it's open for basically convention and all disciplines of the Aero Club to basically network and session together. So that's basically the plan for that weekend. So the 4 days will be a 4-day event, camping and so on. That is the planning is there as well. I think that's all we're getting together with a team to start planning that more than it. And getting all the paperwork in order and start following the new road.
Okay, Neil, Mr. Chairman, and from Nigel Musgrave, that all the paperwork as far as CAA is concerned for our side of Air Week has been submitted. That's got to be done, it's supposed to be done 150 days before the time. So anyway, so Nigel has got that in hand. And I'd like to just go back a second to the steady climb at Rhino Park. Sorry, you guys. Right. So the steady climb event at Rhino Park, you know, that the sponsors who have come along, like the guy who owns Ray Scott, who owns Tranquility, and Alan Stewart from Panorama. So they've each given a substantial prize, which one was R1,000 just to start off with, and then 2 nights of Tranquility with a lion and cheetah experience. It's really, really terrific. And when Franz Smith put it out in public, they got in 5,000 rand in the first hour. So it's an absolutely wonderful initiative. The fact that they are trying to help aviators who have hit hard times because of this alleged virus problem, and to help these people in business. And he's already named five individuals who have started businesses outside of aviation. It's absolutely terrific, and I think we owe it to Franz Smith and company to support this in our drove. So I hope we'll darken the skies. I see the forecast is a little inclement at the moment, but that's because the guy's looking at his T-diagram. He's not looking out the window, the forecast. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, you guys.
Carl, it's Nigel here.
Nigel.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi, Nigel.
Yes, Nigel, can hear you. Loud and
Right.
clear.
The Rhino Park fly-in, just some info for people who are not aware of it. Rhino Park frequency is 135.6. The parking will be 120.2. Right. We will be on the air from 7 o'clock in the morning.
You're a good man, Nigel. No, I'm not getting agreement here. Okay, that's dead right. And thanks, Nigel, for going ahead. and all the work that you do, you put in to help make this successful. And we'll see you there, all of us.
Only a pleasure.
Are you there and are you ready?
I'm here. Do you have me?
Cool. I was going to try and get a picture of you on the screen here.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me, guys. I appreciate it. I put this PowerPoint together a little while ago. I've given it a few times, a lot of instructors. People seem to get a lot out of it. A few caveats as we go through. Please don't take any screenshots or photos of the accidents. Nothing is really classified. Just it doesn't need to be out there any more than it already is, out of respect for everybody that's involved. The other caveats to this is everything I'm going to relate to you is all the information I know that I garnish from the accident, from the investigations. And I'll go through how all that transpires here in a moment. But everything I tell you is factual as I know it. Now, there may be more information that comes out through the investigations. I never, very seldom read the final NTSB reports. Honestly, we just do too many of them. I just can't keep track of them. We do pick up somewhere around 70 crashes a year here in America. And that's just my company. So again, everything I'm going to tell you is what I know from the accidents and the backstories I get. I do find out a lot of information from people meandering around the airport and people that, just see things and may not talk to other people. The other thing I need to emphasize is I am in no way bashing any of these guys that have crashed. I will be very frank about what happened. If these guys make mistakes, I call it out. I'm going to tell you. And I will be the first to admit I've made some of these mistakes myself, and I think a lot of you will start nodding your head going, yeah, I've been there. The goal of this is to look at that, talk about it, realize when you're going down that road, and stop it. We say every accident is a chain of events, and if you can just break one link in that chain, you can prevent the accident from happening. So we're going to look at some of those chains and what led to some of these unfortunate events. At the end, we'll open it up for some questions. Glad to answer whatever you got. We'll get my email out there to you guys. If you want to send me an email later on, that'd be fine too. Love to hear from you and give you anything I can. So with that, let's kick it off. Let's hit the first slide. Pretty famous statement. And as we go through this, I think you're going to see it's very, very true. Slide. All right, here's the first one. This is a turbine commander, twin engine turboprop. We had mom, dad, daughter, and granddaughter on board. They were coming to the Nashville area on a cold January day. And they were given vectors to the final approach at a feeder airport to Nashville. He blew through final. They vectored him around. He never got on final, but started his descent. He paralleled the final approach course, broke out of the clouds, flew across the airport at about 75 feet, went missed, back up, still talking to approach, was on downwind base to final. The last cut on him was at 90 knots in this turbine commander. It's typical base to final stall spin and impacted right here. That's the crater at the bottom of the picture there. This was literally 75 feet from a gymnasium that had several hundred people in it. All those little flags you see out there in the field are marking either small aircraft parts or bio. Slide. Come to find out, this gentleman, that's the impact crater. It was solid rock. Come to find out, this gentleman flew this airplane a whopping 25 hours a year. And although he had just come from simulator recurrent training, he took this airplane with his daughter and granddaughter into hard IFR and snow, ice, freezing rain. It was a miserable afternoon. And also come to find out, this was the first flight after maintenance. The gripe was that the autopilot kept kicking off. So while we were doing one of the layouts with all the attorneys, had about 25 people in there with their attorneys and their experts. This is a year and a half after it happened. I, not being very PC, happened to be standing next to an attorney and asked him if he found the ice that was on the wing. He looked at me and said, well, actually, I'm the attorney for the pilot. And I said, well, I guess you're not even looking for that ice then, are you? And he reiterated some things, and I went through that lineage of low time, not current, hard IFR, first flight after maintenance, going IFR. And I looked at him and I said, it just doesn't sound like he stacked the deck in his favor, did he? And the attorney looked at me and said, well, it's been nice talking to you. Slide. Here we have a Cirrus. This is a little airport over in Knoxville, Tennessee, and it's the airport is literally surrounded just about all the way around by a river. It's a fairly short runway. It's about 2,800, 3,000 foot. And we got called that this Cirrus had gone off the end of the runway into the water. That's one thing we always say in at AMF is everyone's different. We just never know what we're getting into until we get there, and then we have to figure it out on the fly. So here we are donning our best beach attire, and we crawl down. Slide. Now the pilot had said he was trying to land and his thermos fell and got in front of his rudder pedals, and he was not able to step on the brakes. And he's relaying this to me while he's standing next to the FAA gentleman who I know. And I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't argue. I don't question. I'm just the tow truck. So I just kind of gave him a little grin and said, okay, sir. And we crawled down, started retrieving this aircraft. Slide, please. Get a big crane, lift it up slowly, let the water drain out. Slide. And before I set it on the trailer, I rolled both main gear tires around until I found what I knew I would find, which would be that flat spot where the rubber is worn through the tread, through the fiber, the belts inside. And looked at Mr. FAA that was standing next to me, and I said, I think those will match those two black stripes you have over on the taxiway and the end of the runway. Come to find out, I'm talking to some of the rampers, and it was very windy that day. This was about his fourth or fifth attempt to land, and he was very fast and touched down about halfway down the runway, jammed on the brakes, and slid off the end of the runway into the water. Fortunately, he was by himself. He was fine. Nobody was hurt. Takeaway from this, guys, if the unfortunate does happen, just own it. Tell them what happened. There's no dummy clause in your insurance policy. The insurance company's still going to pay. If you make it easy on the investigators, they'll make it easier on you. You start coming up with these stories. Our favorite is when they say the gear collapsed on a Bonanza, but the wheels are inside the inner gear doors, so it was obvious they were never put down. So just own it when it happens, and it'll make life a whole lot easier for you. Slide. Here we have a 172. Story to this one. Older gentleman in his upper 60s, living in Illinois, which is the middle of the country, buys this 172 from the East Coast over in Virginia. Him and his buddy get up at dark early and hop in his buddy's airplane and fly several hours at dawn to the East Coast. He picks up his airplane, slide, and starts the trek on this 172 back to his home in the middle of the country. We're looking at it's probably an honest 5-6 hour flight. He makes the last telephone call at his last stop to his wife, and it was getting late. It was I think 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. Slide. Honey, last leg, be home after a little while. So now he jumps into this new to him airplane that he really doesn't have any experience in, that airframe, that particular tail. At night, older gentleman, he's been up an awful long time, and he comes into about a 50 knot headwind. After about 4.5 hours, he runs out of gas. So now he's tired, it's dark, he's over woods, and he just became a glider pilot. Again, did he stack the deck in his favor? Why did he have to make that last leg? I used to be Air Force in another life, and when I got out of the Air Force, I remember sitting down and sipping on a glass of Jack Daniels and telling myself, okay, I never have to take off anymore. There is no requirement. I've got cold beer here. I don't need to go wherever. Just don't push it, guys. It's just not, it's not worth it. You know, if you got someplace you had to be, you should have had a backup plan. Slide. Here we have a Cherokee 6, if memory serves. Either the Cherokee 6 or Saratoga. 6-passenger Piper. Dad and son and 2 buddies that were out on a hunting trip. And they had to get back because one of the buddies in the back seat was having a surprise 40th birthday party that he didn't know about, but the pilot and the son knew about, and they were going to get him back to this party because they had over 100 people waiting for him. These were some very prominent attorneys that lived up in Kentucky. The weather was crap. It was overcast as they were getting to their destination, and they pressed on. They knew the weather was bad, and this was a VFR only pilot. He did not have more than a couple hundred hours. Slide. So he pressed on, and he flew into this weather, asked for higher, couldn't get out of it, and what we have is a very typical in-flight breakup. The wreckage that you saw actually impacted into the woods, very close, very, very close to a gentleman in his deer tree stand. Scared the bejesus out of him, chased all the deer away. But if he hadn't been there, it would have been a very long time before they found the aircraft. But so we start looking at it, and well, all the parts aren't there. So we figure out his direction of flight, pull radar tapes, and start our nature hike. First piece, the farthest piece we found was the rudder cap, which was way out here, the counterbalance. Slide. Then we walked through the field a little bit more. The rudder cap would have been in the top right of that field. And we found an elevator tip. Slide. And then the next field, we found the rudder. This is indicative of an in-flight breakup. Slide. East of or to the north of the rudder, we found the wingtip over in the woods. So we go on this Easter egg hunt and try to find all the parts we could. We found just about all of them. About 6 months later, a couple of hunters found a few more tidbits. We went back up and retrieved. But what happened was they flew into the weather. He was not IFR qualified. He departed controlled flight, got into a spiral spin, accelerated, started yanking on the yoke, and broke the aircraft up in flight. Slide. There's the rudder cap, the first piece we found. Slide. Elevator tip. Slide. That's the tail cone slide. Here's our vertical stab slide. New day, new plane. Here we have a Cirrus. Dad, son, and daughter fly to this little podunk airport in, I think it was rural Illinois, no matter. They flew in for a family reunion. When he lands at this little airport, which has nothing more than a runway and a couple of hangars, he was asking around if there was any maintenance or avionics shop on the field, because he had a rolling tendency on his plane. It just wanted to constantly roll. They did not have any maintenance on the field, so they went to the family reunion, had a great time. Came out to the field the next morning. 3 of them hopped in. It was 800-foot overcast. Slide. You're looking from the front of the airplane into the cabin. That's the back 2 seats. At the bottom of your screen, the 2 white squares, that's the front seat. The fuselage broke across the floor between the front and rear seats and rolled under itself. The daughter, who was riding in the back seat there, unbuckled her seatbelt, had a broken arm, and crawled out of the airplane. And dad and brother were fatally injured underneath there. She later said that the last thing she recalls, as they were going into the clouds, things got a little confusing, and the son, looking out at the right wingtip, said, "Dad, there's the ground." And they tumbled into this bean field. Slide. For those of you curious about the Cirrus and the parachute, you see those lanyards out there. The parachute usually deploys on impact. When the roof breaks like that, it pulls the ripcord, which is overhead there, and fires the parachute on impact. It was just a low scud morning fog type stuff. Hour and a half later, it was sunny. Slide. Meridian, the turbine aircraft. This was mom and dad and daughter-in-law. Christmas Eve, about 3 years ago, maybe. Takeoff, and shortly after takeoff, slide, the access panel that is just behind the engine pops open. This is the panel where you can look at the accessory case of the engine and check all your fluids, that kind of thing. Slide. That's the slide. That's the door you see open, the hatch you see open there right in front of the windshield. That's what popped open. When that door popped open, his first reaction was to pull the throttle back for some reason. So now you're very low, you're at high alpha, and you pulled the power off. Slide. That's the hatch that popped open. Another thing we had in the Air Force, we always said was, what's the first thing you do when you have an emergency? And the answer was, wind your watch. And what we meant by that was, just stop, take a second, wind your watch. And even if it's time critical, just get yourself together and figure out what you're dealing with. Is this really an emergency? No. You've got almost 500 horsepower up there. Can you power through this? Probably. Unfortunately, he took a that really should have been a non-event and turned it into something very tragic. He and his wife survived. The daughter was in the back seat, not having her seatbelt on. When they impacted, she went across the cabin and hit her head on the interior. Was in a coma for about 6 months and passed. Slide. Here we have a twin Piper. Mom, dad, 2 kids. This was either the 3rd or 4th leg of the day. This was this was the 3rd leg of the day, 3rd leg. So first leg, after he lands, he checks the oil and puts 2 or 3 quarts in the left engine. They fly another leg. They were coming out of Florida, if memory serves, heading up towards the Chicago area. So they landed the 2nd leg, and he has to put another 3 or 4 quarts in the left engine. So essentially, on 2 flights, this guy's done an oil change. So at that 2nd stop, he asked a mechanic to take a look at it and see if he can figure out what's going on. Slide. Mechanic does, says, yeah, it looks a little wet, can't really tell what's going on. So now it's getting dark, and he tops off the oil, packs the family into the airplane, and takes off. Slide. He's over the mountains of West Virginia at this point, which is very, very mountainous terrain. I don't think there's a flat piece of land out there that, if there is, it's because somebody cut the top of a hill off. Slide. And he loses an engine. He loses the left engine, the one that's been leaking. Tries to get it started. Here you can see he's cross-feed. He's running through his checklist, doing everything he should have done. Slide. But the engine's not going to start because it doesn't have any oil. It feathered, obviously, twin engines. You lose your oil pressure, your prop feathers. This is looking up through the cowl flap area, and you can see all the oil there on the belly. Slide. This is the flap area after the engine. This airplane was externally self-lubricating. Slide. Oops, I'm sorry, go back one. So now that he's logging single engine time in his twin, and he finds the closest airport, it too has only a 3,000 foot runway. He's high, he's hot, he's excited, and he's not going to make it. He's about halfway down the runway and decides he's got to go around. So he firewalls the one good engine. Those of you who fly twins know what happens. These are turbocharged engines, so there's a bit of a spool up time, just a little bit of lag. And then the turbo comes on like gangbusters, and your turbo controller and your wastegate can't keep up with it. So it over revs, overspeeds just momentarily. This freaks him out. And at that point, he does the only thing that he's done smart on this flight, and he pulled that engine to idle because it scared him how high it was overspeeding. This prevented a VMC rollover, and he fell into those trees flat. Everybody survived. They were banged up, as you can see. There's a little bit of blood there. They all lived. I was not able to find the diamond stone out of the wife's wedding ring that she implored me to find, but everybody lived. So again, did he stack the deck? Did he make some good decisions? And that's what's always fascinating to me when I walk around the yard we have with over 80 aircraft sitting out there, is, we as pilots like to think we're pretty well squared away, that we're pretty rational, we're pretty intelligent. But for the love of God, what makes us make these last few really dumb decisions that end up this way? And if he would have just made a good decision along the way and said, I shouldn't have to do an oil change on 2 flights. There's got to be something wrong. Go get a hotel. Slide. All right, very nice Bonanza. And I know everybody says, oh, Bonanzas are doctor killers. Well, I argue that doctors are Bonanza killers. Here we have a gentleman. He was in his early 70s. This was, again, the first flight after annual, coming from another airport, bringing it back to his home airport. As he gets into the pattern, he goes to put the gear down, and the gear won't go down. He starts fiddling around, doesn't really get any progress with it, and he does what every Hollywood pilot says he's going to do. He's going to do a low pass and have the guys in the FBO come out and see what he's dealing with. I would ask that in the history of aviation, has doing a low pass out of the tower ever given you any more information than you already had? It's a waste of time, in my opinion. Also in the air was another mechanic who knew this gentleman, had worked on this airplane previously, and got on the radio and said, you know, hey, Ralph, let's go up to 3,000 feet, put your autopilot on, and see if we can unscrew this kitty. The pilot says, no, I'm going to do this flyby, which he does. And he flies by, and the FBO says, yeah, Ralph, your gear's kind of half out. Okay. Slide. So he attempts to do a go around, and the engine dies as he's, again, relatively slow, high alpha, off to the kind of the side of the departure into the runway, and finds himself running out of airspeed and ideas. You can see the propeller blade here, and this is one of the first things we look at. Notice how straight it is. Obviously, it was not turning, it was not making power. Slide. There's your other blade, very, very straight. Slide. That's the third blade. You can see just to the left of my foot there. Again, very, very straight. So yeah, confirmed, the engine wasn't running. Slide. He did have shoulder belts on, and that is that's one thing I always try to implore. If you do not have shoulder belts in your airplane, go get them. That is the single biggest factor we see between fatal and non-fatal accidents. As you can see in this airplane, there's plenty of what we would call livable space, and he was able to survive because, in part, he had a shoulder belt on. Slide. This is the left wing. In 14 years of doing recoveries, this is the first time I've ever seen this. Look closely. See what looks goofy? That's the leading edge at the bottom of your screen. The tree went through the wing from the trailing edge. So how does one crash backwards? We were scratching our head. It took us a little bit to figure this one out. Slide. I think there's one more. Nope, back up. Again, when he was high alpha and on the edge of stall, heading for some apartments full of people, a wing dipped, caught a treetop, spun him around 180 degrees, and he fell backwards into these trees. If you could back up one more slide. In this picture, you can see he's got high back seats. So when he crashed backwards, along with having the shoulder belt, he had his head against the headrest and his back against the back, and it allowed him to survive this crash. Pretty crazy. What happened? Why didn't the gear come down? Those of you may or may not know, Bonanzas are electric gear. It runs off an electric motor. Very high draw. And when he departed, he never had his alternator on. Bonanzas have a master switch and an alternator switch, like a lot of Cessnas do. And he never put the alternator online. So he ran out of electrons as he got close, tried to put the gear down, not enough electricity to do it. Again, is this a problem? No. You go up to 3,000 feet, put your autopilot on, and get out your emergency gear checklist, and you simply put the handle down, pull the breaker, and crank the handle 50 turns, and the gear comes down unlocked. And then you go get a cup of coffee. Slide. Next one, please. Okay, here we have another Piper Seneca. The runway is in the background there at the top of that green knoll, running parallel to the screen left to right. This gentleman was actually going to fly this airplane to its annual inspection. Amazingly, we had video of the entire event off a camera that was on top of the FBO. Slide. You can see there's the ramp. We were able to, this is what we call a drive-by. This is wonderful for us. It's easy. We can just pull right up next to it and load it up on the trailer. That little crane there is absolutely invaluable to us. That's affectionately called the Grim Creeper. Obviously, you've seen everybody crashes mostly where it's pretty inaccessible, and that thing just is a workhorse for us. Take it everywhere we go. So nonetheless, he crashes here and slides across the grass right next to the ramp. Just to the left of that screen is the fuel pumps. He missed those by very, very close. Slide. There's his ground scarring. Didn't travel very far. Pancaked in pretty hard. He was bent and broken up. Took him to the hospital. He did end up surviving, but he was very badly hurt. As you can imagine, that kind of impact pancaking in doesn't do very good for the back. Slide. So we start delving into things, and part of what we do when we show up with the NTSB and the FAA is we help them gain what they call the perishable evidence. They don't have tools, so we're there to be their hands taking stuff apart. They may not have expertise in a lot of varied aircraft and details. All of us being mechanics, we kind of have a little more of a varied background on systems and things of that nature. Not to say that the NTSB is not qualified. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying they're analytical, we're mechanical. So here, a lot of you may know this. This is the stabilator trim jack screw in the tail of that airplane. As you can see, that's all the way to one extreme. That jack screw is run all the way out. That tells me he never set the trim for takeoff. He wasn't following a checklist. And he took off, and when you see the video, shortly after takeoff, again, he goes very high alpha, and you see the classic stall wing waggle, and the plane rolls over on a wingtip and pancaked in. A little further delving into the backstory of the plane, it was out of annual. It hadn't had maintenance. It's scantily flown in the past 2 years, and this guy jumped in it and thought it prudent to fly it over to someplace to get maintenance when nobody really looked at it. So here you have just a cultural thing, a culture of not following rules, not paying attention to checklists. You know, it just doesn't matter. He treated it like he was just jumping in his car and going somewhere. Slide. All right, here is a wheat field in southern Illinois. You can see that this would be a pretty nice place if you had to do an emergency landing. It's not a lot of obstacles. It's pretty flat and smooth. Slide. As I said, we pick up about 70 crashes a year, and an honest 50% of those are fuel starvation. Now, I didn't say exhaustion, it's starvation. Key difference. Exhaustion means you've used up all the gas on the airplane. Starvation means you just starved the engine of fuel. Here you can see this gentleman had about 20 gallons of gas in the left wing, and his fuel selector was on the right wing. A lot of us have moving map GPSs in the plane. Inside all those GPSs, there is timer memos you can set to set yourself an alarm. Please, people, set it up with a 20 or a 30-minute flashing alarm, and it says check fuel gauge, switch tank, some form of a memo like that. Even if you don't change it, it gets you to look at your gauges and see where your fuel is and manage it better. There is just no excuse to run out of gas, and certainly no excuse to have a fuel starvation issue when you've got gas on board and you didn't have it selected. Slide. Same aircraft. This is where he hit. Now, I would ask you, given that field, how do you do this? How do you crash like this in that field? I mean, my gosh, short of a desert, what more do you want? The other thing I will share with you guys, if any of you fly airplanes with tip tanks and you're going to do an off-airport landing, if you don't turn the master off, at least turn your nav lights off and your strobes off. The tip tank, full of gas or full of fumes, is going to be one of the first things that ruptures. And when it ruptures, it pulls the wires to those lights and they spark. And that's exactly what happened here. He was coming in to land at this field. He had his gear down. He was slow. He got too slow. He stalled, started to do the wing waggle, smacked a wingtip. That wingtip ruptured. He was sliding sideways with that wingtip leading the way. So as the gas came out, fumes came out, gas came out, it atomized and was trailing down the wing spar towards the doors. Those clamshell doors for the back seats popped open because the plane hit so hard it tweaked the fuselage. That flaming fuel spilled into the back of the cockpit there, into the cabin. And this was husband, wife, and mother-in-law. And the mother-in-law was in the back seat. And after a week or two, she perished due to her burns. Slide. Slide. Bit of the dark humor of recovery, you always find a shoe. It's amazing. Shoes always get blown off. Slide. Here we have another Cirrus in its natural environment. Just kidding, guys. This was a CAPS pull, the parachute pull. This was an IFR qualified pilot and a friend. Again, trying to fly over the mountains in East Tennessee on a dark and stormy afternoon, lots of weather, lots of thunderstorms, and he thought he could make his way through it and around it. You know that weather we get on the screens is a little bit stale, right? Could be 5 to 30 minutes stale. We have that weather radar, and it's a tremendous tool, but it's for avoidance. It's not for picking our way through cells, guys. It doesn't work. And here's a perfect example. He was up at 14,000 feet trying to pick his way through some cells. Didn't work. Departs controlled flight. Fortunately, he had the parachute and he pulled it and they drift down. Slide. The two of them crawl out of that airplane and get up to the road. They one of them was limping pretty severely because his prosthetic leg was broken in the crash. And they got up and they were okay. Slide. So we have to come in and figure out how we're going to get this one out. Well, it's in a national forest, and we're not allowed to take motorized equipment into the national forest. We have to get special dispensation just to use a chainsaw up there. So next thing you have to do is call in a helicopter. Slide. So we'll cut this thing up into manageable pieces and airlift it out. We do probably 4 to 5 airlifts a year over in the mountains. Slide. The parachute risers work great for picking these things up when they're in the woods. It's a nice bonus. But again, stacking the deck, man. You know there's weather out there. Why are you going to try to pick your way through it? Go around it, or get up to it, land, go have lunch and a Coke, and wait for it to pass by, and then take off behind it. Slide. Some of you may have heard of this one. This is a B-17 crash up in Bradley, up in the Northeast. One of the few flying B-17s. This was 909. That was the tail number. That's what its nose art was called, 909. They were giving a joyride, paid joyride to about 10 people. It's about a 30, 45 minute flight. They'd go up, fly around, you know, it'd be pretty amazing fly of a lifetime to get to fly in a B-17. He took off and made a call to tower saying, I've got a rough running engine. I need to blow out the mag. We're not sure what he was referring to by that, but suffice it to say he had a rough engine and he wanted to get back to the airport. He never really got above 500 feet. Kind of makes a left, call it about a 270-degree turn because he's trying to get back to a crossing runway. Very rushed, very, very quick return. Skids across the runway, never really got on center line, came across the runway, slide, and goes through the grass, through a taxiway, up onto the apron, and impacts that big black thing there, which is, I think it's a 10 or 20,000 gallon de-icing fluid tank, and that's a de-icing truck there. What you're looking at there is the cockpit area, the nose area of the airplane. Slide. Sitting vertically there is one of the 50 caliber machine guns. Slide. This is the right wing that impacted a couple of buildings there on the right side. That's number 3, the right inboard engine. That structure, the arched structure you see to the right, that's one of those little Quonset buildings, fabric covered. It slammed into that, and the only door was on the front where the fire was. The people couldn't get out. Somebody in the parking lot well behind these buildings saw what happened, and obviously he had a pretty significant pair. He ran across the parking lot, scaled a fence, heard the people screaming, had a knife in his pocket, got to the back of that building, sliced the material open, and got 3 people out of that burning structure. Slide. 10 people perished in this accident. There's the wing. There's that building I was speaking of. Slide. Aluminum, after it's been through this heat, is like paper mache. You touch it and it just crumbles in your hands. Here I'm standing on top of that tank looking at the aircraft. You can see number 2, the left inboard right there on the right side of the screen. Up on the concrete in the right-hand quadrant of the picture leading towards that white trailer, you can see 2 long skid marks. Those are the main tires. As he skidded, the runways off there in the distance in front of those buildings. Slide. De-ice truck, left wing. Slide. That's the right wing and that hut. Slide. You get a lot of looks when you have 4 big Pratt Whitneys on your trailer. Slide. You get a lot more looks when you have that on your trailer, and nobody will tailgate you, that's for sure. Slide. Okay, back one. Backstory on this one. You've got what the pilot of this airplane was touted as having more B-17 time than anybody else in the world. Given that there's only a few of them, that's not really a tall comment, but he had about 6,000 hours in this airplane. He was a civilian pilot. He was never military. He was never commercial. He was never corporate. I'm not dinging him by saying that. My purpose in telling you that is he never had any formal crew resource management training. He never really had training on how to function as a crew. Talking to people in the warbird community, people that knew this guy, knew of him and about him, he flew this airplane like it was still 1944. I'm the captain, you sit there until I'm dead. He was very, very omnipotent like that. He even at one point a few years back, ran across some taxiway lights. The FAA called and said, "Hey, come on in, let's talk about this." And he said, well, I'll be nice. He said, "No, thank you." They said, "No, really, we need you to come in and we just don't want to talk to you about this, or we're going to pull your ticket for 60 days. And he said, "Yeah, no, thank you." So they pulled his ticket. And he went back to flying. What we can figure out thus far, it's still open-ended. He did have an engine problem. He claimed it was number 4. Video shows it was number 3 that was smoking very bad out the exhaust. So he misidentified the engine. I'm pretty sure these things can fly around on 3 engines. Those 20-year-old kids did it back in 1944. So why was he in such a rush to get back? What was the hurry? Man, you know he wasn't at max gross weight. Climb out, run your checklists, unscrew the kitty, and come back and land and go get a beer. But he didn't. He rushed it, got in a hurry, had to get back, screwed up the landing, killed 10 people. Slide. Pick up the pace here a little bit. This was a Navajo. He was aerial mapping. The airplane had a known fuel leak. He still took the plane anyway. He went out flying to do his mission. He was flying for a couple of hours. He realizes he was getting dangerously low on fuel, asked to go back to the airport he departed from, which was some ways away, rather than landing at a closer airport, which he passed 2 or 3 decent ones. He's on extended final. Slide. Loses an engine because of fuel starvation. VMC rolls, spins right into this house. Fortunately, nobody was home. Slide. Catches fire. Burns to death in the flames. Slide. Caught the corner of this house. Like I say, again, nobody was home. There was people in houses on either side of it, but thank God not this one. Slide. That little shiny triangle you can see in the middle of that slide, that's the tip of a 3-bladed propeller. The hub and the rest of it is swallowed up in the earth. I had to drill a hole and put a clevis through that propeller and hook my crane, which can pick up almost 5,000 pounds, and struggled to pull that puppy out of the ground. Slide. The Grim Creeper, hard at work. Slide. Here we have a Grumman. He just had brand new Garmin G5s installed in the aircraft. Took off on an IFR day for the first flight after avionics install. New to him. Enters the weather, comes tumbling back down into this neighborhood. Slide. That's looking from impact through the field of debris. That's that car that's on the right side of your screen used to be on this side of the street. Slide. That's the house he came through. Those are the trees you can see in the background. He broke a few branches, came through that carport, took the car out of the driveway, scattered himself across the street in a ball of fire. Slide. And again, you have to ask yourself, are you stacking the deck in your favor? You just had new avionics put in. It's a lot of wiring. It's new to you. Does it make sense to go fly IFR on the first flight? We joke, you can go fly whenever you want, but it'll be a clear day when I come pick you up. Slide. Up there against the back of that white car is the engine. It made it all the way across, ripped itself off. That's the spar in the middle of the picture. Grummans use a tube, a pipe, as their spar, and some of them actually use that for the fuel tank as well. Slide. There's the engine. Made it all the way up there. Slide. There's the top of the mountain. We got the climb on another aerial recovery. Slide. This was 6,000 feet up the mountain, hand over hand climbing to get there. This was a VFR guy, brought his girlfriend and his 11-year-old son. They're going to Pigeon Forge, East Tennessee, Dollywood, you might have heard of. Big resort entertainment area. Again, a VFR only guy. He's above a overcast. He's on a VFR flight plan. Sets up a 500 foot per minute descent in his autopilot, figuring, yep, I'm just going to let myself down through this stuff. And was about 40 feet short of the top of the mountain. Screwed it straight in. Everybody at his home airport said he was very nonchalant about the rules, didn't care, often flew in instrument conditions without a rating, without much training. You know, guys, I don't care if you take yourself out. I go to these accidents and I never feel sorry for the pilot because, yeah, it sucks, but you did it to yourself. I always have a great deal of remorse and sadness for the people you took with you, the people that got in that airplane because they thought you were Chuck Yeager, Tom Hoover, Bob Hoover. You know, you've told them you're the best pilot in the world. And they got in that airplane with that blind trust. And the dogs, man. I'm tired of burying. The coroner doesn't take the dog. I got to bury it. I'm tired of burying your dogs. Be smart. Slide. Hey, you guys had that contest on name that airplane. I'll buy you a pint if anybody can tell me what that airplane is. Slide. 27 bags of citation. Now this airplane, this was one of the few that was actually, it's looking like this was a mechanical issue. I can't get into the details of it, but it was looking like he actually had a flight control problem. He was trying to get back to the airport. He came into these trees at the speed of stink and just decimated this airplane. It was almost, well, it was a little over a quarter of a mile between first impact and the last piece of debris we found. Slide. We were out there for 2 days cleaning this one up. Just absolutely shredded. It's pretty overwhelming when we get to these fields and you're in this and there's just so much. So really what we do is everybody spreads out, you stand in one spot and your world is 10 feet around you and you just make a pile and clean up that little area and then you go make another pile. And then we put all these piles into the bags, ATV them back out and load them on the trailer. Slide. There's one engine against the tree on the left. Plane was just ripped apart. Just incredible amount of energy going through this woods. Slide. Slide. It's a good running engine. That was just about to the end of the debris field. Obviously, they go farther. They have the most inertia. Slide. Pretty amazing piece of the spar. Slide. Another gentleman in another Bonanza. It was a very long flight. 4 to 6 hours, 5 or 6 hours. He'd made the flight many times. It was a regular route for him. But on this day, he started running into engine issues. And again, this is going to be a fuel starvation issue. He's on kind of downwind and he tells Tower, hey, I got a rough running engine. Clear the land, any runway, get it inside the fence, come on. And he starts making a beeline for it and doesn't make it. Slide. Crashes into this gas station. There was actually, back up one, there we go. There was actually, to the right of that picture, there was actually a semi-tractor trailer offloading a load of fuel, and he flops in to the canopy right in front of this fuel truck. Doesn't hit the cars, slides across the parking lot, slide, and comes to rest right there against that lamppost. Do you see the lamppost just to the left of the gentleman with the bright yellow jacket? That vertical pole, that's a light post. That's right where the cabin door is. He couldn't get the door open because of that lamppost. Now he hit and burst into flames. Again, a couple of guys that were filling their tanks at the pumps with a couple very large pair of stones grabbed some fire extinguishers and ran over and tried to put this fire out. He's about 2 blocks from a fire department. One of the guys there was a fireman. He calls, they got to the scene very, very quickly. But because that door was up against that post, he could not get out. He was alive. It had club seating. He couldn't get over the seats to the back of the plane to get out the back doors because those club seats, you know, we showed you the other one where the guy, that was a blessing that helped save because he went in backwards and had the high back seats. Here it was a curse because he couldn't get over those to get to the back seat. Slide. But again, fuel management. Obviously he had fuel on board and you can see the prop's not twisted. He just fuel starvation. Slide. There's the pole. Slide. Last one, folks. I always end with this one. If you thought it was pretty heavy, it's just going to get a little more heavy. Beautiful family. Mom, dad, 14-year-old son, 11-year-old daughter. On vacation in Florida, down at what we call the Mouse House down at Disneyland. Heading home to West Tennessee. They're in the cab, and the cab driver is related to us that mom's also a pilot, by the way. Dad's looking at his iPad and his ForeFlight saying, well, there's a pretty significant line of weather running from the Gulf Coast up to Kentucky. I might be able to pick my way through it if I go up to 14, 15,000 feet and weave our way through, but it'd be better if I just went around the north side of the storm, but it'll take about another 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Mom looks at dad and says, I have to be home by 3:30. Slide. Now, I'm pretty sure if I went to mom and dad the day before this flight and I showed them that radar picture and I said, hey, I'm going to put your kids in the back of my airplane and I'm going to go fly through that storm, I bet you he would have some pretty choice words for me and tell me where to get off. But for some reason, that day, it made sense to him. Mom had to get home. Slide. There's their flight path. You can see they're up around 10,000 feet there, top right, doing 150, 160. Tracking it on down. 119, this is the second from the last column, knots, 119, 121, 214, 123, back to 200, down to 95. That's the clock on the left side. 214 to 95 and back up to 200, all within the same minute. Third column from the right, look at the direction. West, 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 southwest, south, north, southwest, north, east, east. Last thing he said on the radio is, I'm doing the best I can. This was a Cessna 182. The right wing broke off at the wing root. The left wing broke off and ripped the roof off the airplane. The horizontal stabilizer bent vertically against the vertical stabilizer. And for 1.5 minutes, these people rode down. Slide. There's the cockpit, the engine, seats. Can you imagine the abject fear when they were getting bounced around like a BB in a boxcar? Can you imagine hearing your family? Slide. I think that sums it up. Takeaways I want to give you guys again real quick. You got tip tanks, you're going off field, get the power off. Set up a fuel timer. If you don't have one in the panel, bring a stopwatch, set your cell phone. I don't care. Every 20 or 30 minutes, have a buzzer go off so you look at your fuel and select another tank, or at least keep track of what you got. Shoulder belts. Guys, if you don't have shoulder belts, go get them. I know they're not glamorous. They don't look cool. It's not like a pretty panel, but it's sure a whole lot better than a windshield taste test. And AOA indicators. I'm a big proponent of AOA indicators. Coming from the military, once you have one and you learn how to use it, it will save your life. It has saved my wife's life. We put it in her Cherokee. She's a low-time pilot. She went to a busy airport. Typical, you know, trying to keep your head on a swivel in the pattern. And I always advocate to mount them up on your glare shield so it's in your line of sight. She's trying to keep track of everything, base to final turn. She's looking around, and sure enough, she's getting slow, and that big red chevron came up on it, and she knew, cob the power to it, roll wings level, and it saved her butt. So take a look at them. I like the Alpha Systems AOA. I get no kickback from them. That's just the ones I've picked. I use, I install a lot of them. But anyway, that's all I got. Sorry if it was a little heavy, but you know, be smart. I'm open to questions.
Great job. Yeah. That was great, Chris. Anyone got a question here? We've got a whole lot of questions here. Chris, you may be here all night. Carl, can you come over here?
I've got as much time as you need, guys.
Thank you.
Give them the mic.
Okay, you're going to have to sit here.
Okay. Oh, this is a hot seat. From Neil. Chris, that was very enlightening. It was really, really terrific. I'm going to go and slit my wrists right now. Do you think that's a good idea? I think so. It'll save a lot of other people. But seriously, you said that this attitude indicator, I think that is one of the most wonderful instruments. It is so simple and very, very easy to use. And like you said right at the end there, I thought that summed up everything that you said there. You know, I've had the good fortune to fly some of the bigger Boeing stuff. There's where you said, just let me see where it is. It says, wind your watch. Mr. Boeing said, sit back and light a cigar. And every emergency in any aircraft had a 5-minute limit, except that there were half a dozen that didn't, like an immediate, like a fire or something like that. But
right.
Also rushing through it. And what you kept on saying there, you kept bringing it up, that these people hadn't done their checks. Now, somebody said to me that vita is a Greek word meaning life. So vital actions they are sacrosanct. You cannot, nobody gets away with it. You've shown us about 20 times here. Running out of fuel. In our legislature, they reckon that running out of fuel is an offence. So we have to abide by that unless you want to go and do some time in the cooler. But we also, amongst our guys here, we've got a fellow here who's from a company called Balmoral that picked up bits of one of the 737 MAX 8 and of a 777 over Europe. And as you say, I think you called it biological bits. Yeah.
Yes.
It must be. How do you actually cope with that? It is such grim stuff that you're talking about.
I've never been one to be queasy or I guess it just doesn't it doesn't bother me. I don't know, and I don't necessarily, I don't compartmentalize it. I don't not think about it. It's there. I mean, I'm very pragmatic. I'm very, it is what it is. Okay, that used to be somebody, but you know, it's just a piece of bio I got to pick up and help the coroner with. So, it's just part of the job. It's there. I guess I just fortunate that it's just never bothered me. I can't really give you a good answer for that one.
And a question on most of those accidents where you didn't imply, we could see what the problem was. How did you go with, or how did the insurance work on most of those cases? Did they pay out?
Yes. The insurance pays out. Like I said, there's no dumbass clause in your policy that says, you know, if you were stupid, we're not paying, which is good. But so they will always pay, and they take care of it, and you know, and that's something else too. Even if you don't feel like your airplane's worth that much, or you think insurance is too much, if you don't want to have the hull coverage and pay for the hull, at least have liability coverage. Because if you you know, if you crash somewhere and leave a mess and take out some property or some people, they're just going to go after your estate or your family to get the money for it. So at least have some protection for your liability.
Okay. With the B-17, you alluded to CRM, which obviously was totally non-existent. What, in your experience with people, with all these crashes, how CRM, single pilot operation, or like you were mentioned about the lady or the wife that saw the red and said, there you are, and that saved it. That is really a wonderful example of CRM. I'm absolutely enthralled at this, and I don't have questions on my boggle is minded the other way around. But thank you very much indeed. I'm sure Neil has got, I don't know if he's got any more.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Question? Yeah. Sean? All right. I am the spokesman, it seems.
Carl, what did you ask Chris? Tell me really quickly.
What was that helicopter that looked like an S-64? The helicopter that you used to lift the...
Yeah, I want to say it's a S-58. The original ones are the 50s era that had the radial engines in the nose. And this one has a turbine. The later ones had turbine engines in there. I want to say it's a 58.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Westland. Okay. We will discuss that amongst us, and we'll come up with an answer, hopefully.
Okay.
But thanks very much. That was really, really wonderful. And, you know, living on, it was absolutely riveting. This is a noisy bunch we have out here, but there was not, you could hear a pin drop throughout your talk there. It was really, really tremendous. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me. It's a lot of stuff, and I feel like sometimes I go too fast or that it goes too long. But I hope everybody got something out of it. And again, let me reiterate, guys. We need to look at all this stuff as what not to do and how we can do it better. I know I come across a little cold and hard on some of these pilots, but you know, they're all good guys at heart. They just made a couple of bad mistakes, and we just need to not do that and learn from it.
I don't like the thing where they say weather was a factor. They should not have been in the weather. It's a mitigating factor. It's not. It's an aggravating factor.
There's cold beer wherever you're at. You don't have to go.
Yeah. Well, that was the other problem that we saw here. Most of it was ghetto-mitis.
Yes.
Tremendous. Thanks.
We have a question here.
This came from one of the other guys.
Okay.
Said, what is your view of those ballistic shoots like on the Cirrus? People killers. I mean, what are they? Your view?
I think it's a wonderful safety feature. It's a fantastic option. There's been, you know, hundreds of people saved by them. My only, and this is just Chris, my personal feeling, I don't necessarily like Cirrus's mentality towards the parachute and their training. Cirrus is very pro whatever happens, pull the chute. I think Cirrus, they're selling a safety feature, and some of you may or may not know, the only reason that Cirrus has a parachute is because it wouldn't recover from a spin in a timely manner. So to get it certified, they came up with a parachute solution. Now that's wonderful. It's a great feature. But, you know, if I'm at 2,000 feet over that wheat field in Illinois where that bonanza was, why can't I fly the plane to the ground and land? I'm a pilot, for God's sakes. I should be able to fly the plane to the ground. So I love the chute. I think it's great. I just wish Cirrus would emphasize more stick and rudder and judgment training in their curriculum.
So, Chris, one last question. Cirrus, once it's had a parachute pull, does that airframe ever get back in the air, or is that it?
I couldn't quite hear you. Were you asking if they pull the chute, can the plane ever fly again?
Yeah, if they pull the chute, is that the end of the airframe?
No. It used to be that way. When Cirrus first came out, they said you pull the chute, the plane's total. And that, with their training curriculum, that no matter what, pull the parachute, the insurance companies were losing money hand over fist, paying out these, you know, $300,000, $500,000, $600,000 airplanes. So the insurance companies actually went to Cirrus and said, look, you got to come up with a way to fix these things. And Cirrus did. As long as the plane lands, you know, on something relatively flat, you know, it doesn't drop a wing on a car or a building or something. Say it lands in that cornfield, wheat field, it is repairable. They can repair it. The landing gear actually flexes so hard that the wheel pant will ding the underside of the wing, and the seats have you know, kind of a crushed seat like a helicopter has, and they came out with repairs for all that, so they can fly again.
Chris, thank you very much. That was
My
great.
pleasure.
And we really appreciate it, and I think everyone was enthralled. I mean, I saw the participants on the Zoom side. They never, they went from 25 to 27, and no one jumped off. So well done. Thank you, Chris. Okay.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for the opportunity. Nice to meet y'all.
Great. Okay. And hopefully we'll see you over there one of these days. Thanks, Chris. Finances, I don't know if Mark is around. Is he online? Okay, Mark, I don't know if you want to say anything on the finances.
As you can see, the finances, there's not much change from last month. $50,000 account, and I'll just bring it down a little bit. And that's it. And that's it pretty much. It's going to be till the end of the year.
Okay, Mark, thanks. We'll go to the next thing then. Okay, and just to our host, Vicky Fritz, we asked everyone to bring a couple of gifts. We've got a table of gifts here. Thank you very much to everyone. And EAA and together with Gordon Dine has donated some money. We want to donate it to the guys at Vicky Fritz for a year-end function. Eddie or one of you can come up and just grab this over here. They're all shouting me. So we've donated some money here at Gordon Dine towards you guys for a year-end celebration or whatever you guys want to do with it. Mark will sort that out. I think that's just like a voucher. And that's all you guys do for us. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Pleasure. Okay. Thank you. Let's do airplane. Let's just do this quickly. That's all I think we would have known that. Flying mango beyond 12. Okay. Are we right, Ezra? Right. Okay, cool.
It is one of those lines as like McCurch's house at the top.
Okay. Never knew. Well done. Okay. Kagamas are normally yellow. Okay. Guys, Jeremy just brought up something he wants to bring up. I'm just going to let him come over. You're going to have to come here, Jeremy.
I want to make a proposal. I've made this proposal previously, and so have many other people made it on the EAA group, and it has to do with the incompetence or the lack of performance by CAA. And my proposal is that we start looking at some way of suing CAA legally to change the system or change the things that the way that they handle C of A's and ATFs, etc. I'm not saying that I've got the solutions to this, and I'm sure that everybody has got different solutions that they can propose to it. But I want to propose that we actually list every one of the problems that we've had with CAA. I know that David has had a lot of problems, and you've got Richard Nicholson has had many problems. I've had problems. And I think, Ron, you've also had problems. Who hasn't had any problems with CAA? Everybody has. So, I think our group here has been taking the soft course of action for a long time. And people do not want to, for instance, the AMOs do not want to fight against CAA because they will become, they'll be victimized. And they will get nothing done once they do it. So I think it is something that has to be done by a group like ours, the Error Club, and maybe EAA National and EAA 322 together. We've got to find a way of taking these guys on legally, taking them to the Constitutional Court or whatever it is, to make sure that when they issue those CFAs, that they are redated or something like that. And it's just unacceptable what we have to put up with CIA now. And if we're just going to sit back and let it happen, that shouldn't be what we're about. So if I can suggest that we put together some kind of a meeting or group and start looking at this project.
Thank you very, very much for raising that exact point. Just for the record, yesterday I attended a CASA meeting, and Jeff was in the CASA meeting as well. There were about 68, 69 CASA members. That's the Commercial Aviation Association of South Africa. And every single commercial enterprise in South Africa is under considerable pressure, just as you've described, exactly the same issues. Now, on that meeting, I made several statements, and I'm quite happy to make them tonight. And then I'll sum up at the end. I'm actually writing a book on it at the moment. So anybody who wants to give me material for it, thank you very much. I've got a tremendous amount. For example, the lady who walks into a prominent AMO in that area and says, I want to see the gear retraction on a C208. That's absolutely true. And of course, when he described it and he took her to the caravan and he said to her, please can you explain to me how this gear retracts into that fuselage? She said, well, that's going to have to be a finding because you don't know what you're doing. Okay. There was a similar incident at Execujet where a business jet had come in, but the gentleman inspector there had the clipboard, and he sat there with the clipboard, and he turned to the AMO and he said, can I please have the propeller serial numbers? And this is a business jet. So this is what we're dealing with. What we heard at the CASA meeting yesterday is they've got a lot of what they call trainees. So these people, as inspectorate, have got no academic qualification or practical qualification whatsoever.
We've all heard the story of a caravan being grounded because it's filling with Jet A. We've all heard the story about the MU2 that was grounded and lost a charter because of the same. We had a situation at, I won't mention the airport because you might know the company, where they changed their name from this name to that name, and they engaged the CA all the way through. And when it came, and obviously they're engaging SARS, they're engaging everybody because it's the name change. That's got to be changed, everything's got to be changed. And unfortunately, the CAA didn't effect the change, which meant the fleet of 12 aeroplanes were grounded. They could no longer operate the charter business. They took the CAA to court. They won the high court case. It cost him half a bar, okay? He won 350,000 rands worth of damages. He then had to go back to court to sue the CAA to get the damages paid. This is what we're dealing with. Now, the statement I made at CASA yesterday, I'm going to make it again. Poppy Causa's sole mandate at the CAA is to transform the industry at any cost. That's the first statement I'm going to make. The second statement I'm going to make is the fish rots from the head. The CAA is rotten through and through. I walk the ramps. I'm one of the few people that walks at every airport in South Africa. I visit every AMO, every charter company. I go everywhere. And I hear these stories every single day of my life. So the situation is, and Poppy Koza once asked me, why are you involving yourself? And I opened the magazine, this was about 4 years ago, and I put it in front of her and I said, you see Pilatus there, you see this one there, you see this one and that advertiser and that advertiser. You are busy killing my advertisers. And if you kill my advertisers, you kill me. That's why I'm involved. So I am spearheading this up. There's a lot of good news on the horizon. But as I said to CASA yesterday, we need a plan B. And what you're actually saying, Jeremy, is we need a plan B. Now, I'm going to be taking this message to every single organization in South Africa, whether it be through CASA, through the Airlines Association. You all heard last year where 46 airliners were grounded. And they had a huge hoo-ha at Aoa Indicators. I was there. I challenged Mr. Causa. The reason they were grounded is because the AMOs didn't have their licenses back. All the licenses from SAA Technical were sitting at the CAA, okay? And it was about radio work. It was radioticians. There was nothing wrong with those 46 airliners. In fact, by the Thursday, she grounded them, or CA grounded them on the Tuesday. By the Thursday, when this meeting happened with the clown, who's the Minister of Transport, you know who the clown is, don't you? Fiki Mburula. She made this big whole thing. All but 2 of those aircraft had been returned to service already. And I had those facts with me, and I challenged her there and then. I said, the reason you grounded them is because of your own inefficiencies and because the pilots, the AMO's licenses were not given back timeously by the CA. Now, they've been on a glorified holiday right through this COVID period on full pay. Most of us have taken pay cuts or cut our salaries to some extent. So, yes, I totally endorse this. I think it's a good idea, and I think it's a wake-up time now. The time is, we've got to stop being nice. And the sooner this matter gets into the courts, because I still do believe that the South African courts, there's 2 other avenues. And the other one is they are shit scared, and I'm going to say that word, of ICAO, and they're shit scared of the FAA. And that's where it's got to go. So what Jeremy has said, on a case-by-case basis, this is what CARS is doing. They're building it on a case-by-case basis. They've got 59 cases right now. And we're dealing with serious stuff. We're dealing with the livelihoods of people, not their hobbies, their actual livelihoods. The survival of a company like Executive or Absolute Aviation or NAC. That's what we're talking about. The very survival of general aviation in South Africa. And for the matter, the airlines too. Look at Miles van der Molen went through. And I know him personally, so I know exactly what happened there. So I'll leave you with that. We need to start developing a war chest because it's the only way. And we've got to get that woman out of the CAA. Okay, cool. Okay, and I'll read just a couple of words there.
Hello, everybody. This is just to change the subject. So, welcome to the senior inside. I'm glad you survived COVID-19. You look wonderful and keep it up. You actually got younger through your COVID-19. Nice to see you.
Ladies, gentlemen, good evening. Just what I would like to suggest in terms of this action we need to take against EAA. In the past, we have had meetings at Rand Airport at our own facility, and is that loud enough? All right. We've had meetings on various subjects where we've had difficulties, and members of EAA and other aviation organizations have been invited to attend. They've been there, we've discussed the problems at length, and on each occasion I've absolutely been amazed at the suggestions and the knowledge of the people concerned. We put forward an absolutely fantastic plan to move ahead and make things happen quickly. And I think we need to call a meeting like that where we can all get together, those who are interested, have a major discussion, take out of that discussion all the relevant stuff, and then move forward like that. But it's something that has to be done. It's long overdue. Thank you.
We'll move on. Just to thank you for everyone attending. I just want to show you. Does anyone see my t-shirt here? Oshkosh 2020. I received that from Craig Grissom. Craig, if you're there in Rochester, you would say, Craig sent it to me. Thank you very much. I'm very proudly wearing my Oshkosh 2020 that never had. Okay, so I think the verdict on this work group challenging CIA, I think we need to set up a committee, and we will start investigating and looking into the process. Thank you. Cool. Okay, thanks guys. Thanks everyone for attending. Thanks all you Zoom guys. I'm going to leave this on for a little bit, just pointing on to the meeting. And just EAA wishes all our members a happy Christmas, happy holidays, and a wonderful New Year. And safe travels. Remember, you don't have to get home, you don't have to get there, you can always run another day. Thank you.